Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone. I am Shrija Agrawal and we are doing a special live win series, Cruising the Curb, Looking Ahead Legally, in partnership with Sri Lamarchand Mangaldas. In our first discussion today, we are joined by Mr. Cyril Shroff, who is managing partner at Sri Lamarchand Mangaldas. Also joining him is Mr. L. Vishwanathan, partner at the firm. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It's my sheer pleasure and privilege to be hosting you. Let's begin the conversation with what really is at the heart of all the conversations right now. Of course, I'm referring to COVID-19, which is testing the resilience of almost every sector. It has, in fact, the first of COVID-19 conversation has had inevitable pervasive stress on the banking, financial institutions, and other corporate debtors. My question to you really is that, very rightly so, India has therefore joined a list of several other jurisdictions to announce a temporary suspension on fresh filings under the insolvency and bankruptcy laws. In fact, there have been international bodies like the World Bank which have actually recommended this move. My question really is to understand from you that out of a situation which perhaps requires a reimagination on how to boost a resolution process, what are the key 3 or 4 things that you look at to bolster this? For the purpose of clarity for the conversation today, we have divided it by a narrative into 4 parts. The first part really talks about how you anticipate the audit spending IBC. I'll sort of dwell further on that, Mr. Shroff and Mr. Vishwanathan. I hope that the conversation structure is fine by you. Yeah. In my interview with you, Mr. Shroff, a few days back, and we were speaking about it, that, the suspension of IBC, is it really a boon or bane? And you refer to this famous Ajit joke, quoting that the situation right now reminds you of na jeetne deta hai, na marne deta hai. I would like to understand that what is really on your mind and the mood right now, and we dwell deeper into the conversation from there.
Thank you, Sheja, and thank you, Mint, for co-hosting this webinar series with us in many parts. And this is the inaugural episode, so I'm delighted to sort of be part of it. And I think we've rightly chosen the IBC topic because it is on everybody's mind. And so let's structure the conversation first with, let's start with the immediate and then we kind of look forward in terms of what lies ahead. I think the first topic which is on everybody's mind is what is the ordinance that's going to come for IBC going to look like. The genesis of it is, of course, the finance minister's statement as part of the stimulus package for the 1-year suspension. And whilst the actual black letter is not yet out, there is a lot of speculation and imagination of what it is going to be. I'm sure there are people in the ministry who are at a very advanced stage of finalizing this. But let me give a market perspective, and hopefully some of these conversations will be helpful to the policy makers as well. Coming to the sort of Ajit joke for a second so that we can kind of kick off on a slightly lighter note. So everybody is familiar with the joke where Ajit tells Mona Darling about, on a particular way to torture somebody and says, "So aise karo, to wo na jeene dega na marne dega." So that is this kind of zombie state which could result, and it's an inadvertent consequence. Don't for a moment let my remarks be taken to mean that I am against this idea of suspension. I think the COVID pandemic has resulted in a situation which humanity has never seen before. And it's a natural policy reaction by any government. So be that as it may. I think the question, therefore, is let us understand what it could be. And 5 thoughts come to my mind as I anticipate what the ordinance could be. I think we have a disadvantage that we're trying to imagine something that is yet to happen in the future. So we could be completely off the mark. But I believe that there are these 5 questions which will be relevant. First, whether it is going to apply only to filing of fresh cases, or will the ordinance suspend the proceeding of cases that were filed even pre-pandemic? And there'll be the question of where do you draw the line? What is the date? So first question is fresh or all cases. The second point is whether it applies only to or will apply to creditor filings, or can it apply also to debtor filings? So as we read about many international companies, particularly in the US, voluntarily going into insolvency or bankruptcy, like J.C. Penney and Hertz and some of the other names that we read about in the media, those
Yeah.
are debtor oriented. So, question for us to consider in India is whether that sort of filing is also restricted, Section 10. The third question, which is a date question, is 1 year from when? When does the clock start ticking and when does it end? Will it be now? Will it be from the date of the lockdown? Will it be from some earlier point of time? Will it be from the date of the finance minister's announcement? So those are sort of there are
The leading
multiple
questions.
options,
Yeah.
and if somebody has to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth point is on the exclusion of what's called a COVID default. So there is a kind of a lenient treatment given to COVID default, and we have to be a little careful over here because whilst on the one hand we're trying to protect the private sector and the borrower slash debtor, at the same time there is also a large constituency of stakeholders in the credit community as well, and one man's meat is another man's poison. So it's the view from the other side is, what are my remedies? What will it do to the credit culture? So the big contribution of the insolvency code when it came was the fact that it made a dramatic change to the credit culture by moving the power from the borrower back to the lender.
Sure.
This has again kind of thrown the ball back in the other court, at least for temporary reasons. So
you think there's a temptation? Yeah. So you think there's a temptation that perhaps this could be adopted to prevent sort of misuse, the definition of COVID-19?
I'll come to that. So there could be two ways of looking at it. One is whether the default that has arisen is because of the COVID pandemic. It's a cause-effect kind of thing. Or are we meaning only the rescue finance or the super senior debt that is taken now for the purposes of getting out of the current situation? So you know that banks have been encouraged to provide finance. There is a lot of messaging around that as well. So are we talking about a default in relation to that new, call it COVID debt, or are we talking about defaults that have arisen from a bad business situation of which COVID is one of the constituents? Then these are chalk and cheese. So we need to be clear about what that means. And if that definition is not clear, you're certainly setting it up for default. And the fifth point is really what are the consequential changes. So IBC is just one of the things. There is a pile of stuff in RBI circulars and a lot of cognate regulation and legislation. All of that will require consequential amendment as well. So as we imagine this ordinance and this 1 year moratorium period, there are many issues, but these are some of the top 5 issues that come to my mind. There's a bunch more, but we'll come to it later in the conversation. Now let me ask Viswanathan to give his thoughts on some of these points. And as you know, he leads our insolvency and IBC practice. So over to you, Viswanathan.
Yeah, Mr. Vishnu. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shroff and Shreya. I think the gamut of the key issues you have identified are central. And I'm just hoping that, from the time the announcement has been made by the finance minister to now, a lot of thinking is going into these issues. At a conceptual level, I think this is the time to give breather to the companies. So I think, I would be supportive of the move to, give a 1 year suspension. But I have been sort of maintaining that a 1 year suspension cannot be and should not be seen in isolation. It must be seen along with the range of other measures which will help banks resolve, the stress as well. Just giving a 1 year suspension without creating an alternative mechanism for, achieving resolution or restructuring, would take us back to the pre-IBC days where, all stakeholders, just couldn't put together a resolution. A lot of hard work has gone into creating this IBC framework. So we have to be extremely careful in disturbing the balance which has been achieved after several years of hard work. So I would be extremely cautious in creating this exception, and I would create that exception one on a time-bound basis and creating a safety valve for an alternative path for resolution. If you just give safety, if you create an exception without the alternative path, I think we are going to be in for more problems because after 1 year, you have several companies which will need solution. I think one more overarching point I would like to make. The judiciary has played a tremendous role in evolution of IBC in its current form and in appreciating the legislative intent. Now, one of my key concerns is once you create an exception like this, and I would also sort of hope that the judiciary appreciates the spirit and the sentiment in which this reform is being made. On each of the issues which Mr. Shroff sort of laid out, it's very easy for any debtor to approach a court and say, why only for new cases, why not old? So we have to sort of be very clear that this is a limited exception, and all stakeholders will have to respect that regime. Otherwise, all the hard work which has been done over several years, can be upset. So I would be very cautious, optimistic, but at the same time very cautious as well.
Interesting. Thank you, Mr. Vishwanathan, for sharing my views. And I think it's good that you sort of get into this topic of alternative tools for resolution, talking about, what do you do in the absence of IBC. Before we get on to that, Mr. Shroff, I want to understand from you, as a keen observer of India Inc., and IBC was really hailed as this major transformational piece of law, right, which will go down in the history of India Inc. I want to understand from you, with the suspension, being there, with the fresh filings at least, what is the sentiment for India Inc.? What really are they looking at? What is really going on in their mind? Give us some color there.
So a lot is going on in their mind, and not everybody is necessarily looking at the IBC stuff of it. But I think there are so many issues. I think people's business model has been fundamentally challenged, depending on the sector. I think people are worrying about how to tank up on liquidity and capital, whether through the equity route or the debt route. How do I raise capital? So the business model is challenged and needs to be reinvented. How am I going to deal with capital? The third issue which they're thinking about is cost cutting. In terms of, and it's kind of linked with the business model question as well. And cost cutting can be a number of things. It could be human resources related, but there are also other kind of non-HR costs and levers which they have to pull as well. What proportion and what sequence those are pulled is also on corporate India's mind. So this is a kind of a once in a lifetime moment of reflection on very existential issues. And no matter how big or small the corporate is, everybody is thinking about this. And if they don't admit it, they just pretend it. I mean, every single corporate in India is worried about this in different degrees. Some are treating it as an opportunity to reinvent and to just, the famous phrase of pivot or perish. So there is that going on as well. There is a bunch of them who are, of course, thinking of the IBC part because they are more vulnerable and where the impact has been excessive, where the moratorium will help. But I'm going to come to one related aspect on that to sometime later in this conversation, which you asked about promoters, is reimagining Section 29A, because I think it's time to come to that as well. But let's park it for a second. So that, coming to your core question on IBC being a pivotal moment in India's economic history, I think it certainly has been. What this moratorium does is press a pause button. I hope it's not a stop button. And I think at some stage it will restart. In what shape and form it restarts, time will tell. And in the meanwhile, there is stuff to do. So the point that we were just leading up to of as a second theme of what are the alternative mechanisms that will be available for resolution in this interim period.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Mr. Vishwanathan, you want to sort of add to that what Mr. Shroff just said?
Yes, I think from an overall perspective, before we sort of move to the next topic, I think there's another key consideration which is very relevant for the country and the economy, which is because of COVID and its impact on businesses, there's an expectation that valuations will be down, and therefore, if you keep the IBC window open, you could lose a lot of value, from the perspective of Indian sort of promoters and Indian banks as well. Many companies are already sort of leveraged, so it's clearly not the right time for recycling capital or a retrade of these assets. So the 1-year break could also be seen from the perspective that this is certainly not the right time to sell assets and discover value, because you're not going to get good value for assets at this point of time. It might just open up the door for again hunting, which is not the appropriate moment. I think a period of sort of calm and stability, in the sense in which the economy and businesses is required for them to sort of come back to normal, and then the businesses can sort of shape up and become stronger. I think that's also another driver right now.
Okay. Mr. Shroff, you want to add to what Ms. Vishwanathan just said right now?
Yeah, I agree with that. And just to kind of now sort of carve it up into some subtopics, to ask ourselves the question of what are the alternative tools available for resolution. So, pause of IBC should not be taken to mean no resolution. It's not as if the whole economy is in a coma and nothing will happen. In fact, this is a moment of opportunity for restructuring to be done without using IBC, the IBC framework. And I'm leaving aside just now debtor-induced filing, so leave that aside for a second. And there are many options which need to, now this is a moment to start exploring them. First, I think, is schemes under the Companies Act. So in the old 1956 Act, there was Section 391, 394. In the new Companies Act, we have Section 230. And this is a very well-known instrument in restructuring regimes globally, in England and elsewhere. So even outside the normal bankruptcy code, you can go under a scheme of arrangement under the law of corporations or the Companies Act, and we have that provision in there. This is the perfect time to use it. Now, it's not exactly the same as IBC, because in a IBC framework, the moment you file and the petition is admitted, a moratorium will apply, and then you have a different framework for resolution. As opposed to in the Companies Act, it is a much more judicially led process, and you require approvals from different classes of affected stakeholders. So it's a little different, but as powerful. And I think this is the perfect moment to start using this on creating IBC-like outcomes without necessarily using IBC in a more consensual way. So that's the first alternative. The second is there are these RBI stressed asset directions as well. So there's an opportunity of using this framework in this one year kind of lead time to see what can be achieved using the central bank created framework, and the banks can drive that. And the third, where I think we require some more policy intervention, is prepackaged regime, because the prepack is a very powerful instrument, and what it does essentially in very simple terms is that you kind of arrive at a resurrection package which may involve a sale or whatever it is, and then just go to a judicial authority, in our case NCLT, to get it kind of rubber stamp after having gone through the sort of consensus process. It can be incredibly powerful because there is no need necessarily to go through the whole gamut of a public process with all the auctions and following the full gamut of the IBC-like process. You could arrive at a solution bilaterally. So as I go back and look at some of the examples that we had during the IBC regime, so maybe Jet Airways or maybe even SR Steel for that matter, prepackaged could have resulted in quicker and faster outcomes with a similar legal effect. So this is the time to look at all of these as well, and they can exist even while IBC is suspended.
You think it's the right time for more pre-packed kind of solutions also? Yeah.
Yes, but a framework needs to be created.
I sort of move into this entire conversation about deal making. That is a very important conversation IBC, because I remember when this was first constituted, there was huge spate of interest from investors. All pools of capital were open, right? Distressed investors, private equity investors who kind of made a beeline for the stressed assets. And I want to understand the suspension now up to the fresh cases in the IBC, what it means for the M&A process. Of course, we understand the SEBI has kind of been tweaking the takeover code also. What does it really mean for the M&A activity? Throw some light there for us. Perhaps, Mr. Viswanathan, you can start on this and Mr. Shah can contribute to it. Yeah.
Sure. I don't think so. The M&A activity will get affected. Definitely, there will be interest for the assets, are going over for restructuring. As you are well aware, the RBI framework also contemplates restructuring by way of a change in ownership. And I think that's when the M&As of deal making part sort of will tie in with the resolution and restructuring work. But as you rightly alluded to, the SEBI sort of framework needs to catch up with RBI's framework. This has been a long pending demand from the banks that whereas RBI has moved way ahead in terms of putting together a restructuring framework for distressed companies and for helping banks to solve them. SEBI's distressed asset framework is still looking at it from a public markets perspective. I think there is some rebalancing required. Well, of course, SEBI has to protect the interests of public shareholders, but I think the fundamental principle on which IBC and companies in default operate is one that once you are in default, broadly speaking, concept of shareholder disenfranchisement should apply. There can be sort of nuances, towards it, but if that principle is taken, then many regulations which SEBI currently has, be it, looking for shareholder resolution for, lenders to convert debt to equity, shareholder resolution for raising further capital for a company default, all of that is to improve the solvency of a company. So if there are capital providers who are willing to come and put capital in a company in default, the regulatory framework should encourage that as opposed to, make it more hard or embed some protection for the existing sort of stakeholders who already lost all the stake, in the company. And likewise, the takeover code changes. Mr. Shah did mention, a couple of weeks, in his sort of remarks. SEBI regulations were, more attuned towards, deal making in the distress space. We probably could have saved, some situations. Though this is sort of experience in hindsight. But I think that's a very, very important conversation which needs to take place. Having said that, SEBI has recognized that it is an issue. It has put out a consultation paper for people to give comments. So we're hoping to sort of see more progress on this.